Anyone else find it interesting that out of all things, Ethan's golf clubs are being kept as evidence? Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. There's been some new information coming out in the case, but again, before we get started, there's a gag order. Take everything that you are hearing from anyone who is not officially law enforcement with a massive, ginormous, overweighted grain of salt. Please. The first thing I want to address is the rumor that is going around, because that is what it is, a rumor, that Bryan Kohberger had apparently been sending messages to one of the victims through Instagram. Now, I know that whenever Bryan's name was officially announced, that the family stated that after a few hours of knowing his name, they thought they found a possible connection. But then in all of the later interviews, all of that is being denied, and it's still being stated by law enforcement and anyone actually officially tied to this case that they have yet to find the connection, which probably isn't true. We know that they are really good at hiding the truth. So whenever this People magazine came out and it states their investigative whatever gave them this information, I have to go back to there is a gag order. Whoever in the world leaked this information to People magazine, if it was a law official, just lost their job because it's going to get found out who they were. Gag order is gag order. I hope they paid you well. Now, it could have very easily been a family member, but no one is claiming to know who the person is that was being messaged. So the assumption that it was Kaylee is only based off of what was being said by the family right after Bryan Kohberger's arrest. Nothing has been verified. But it would be interesting if he did end up messaging one of the victims several times and never got a response. The question is this: someone who apparently was well versed in cloud-based forensics wanting to apply for Pullman PD to help them learn more about internet forensics when it comes to investigations, wouldn't he have known that there's a possibility that his messages would go into like a hidden request or a request box, and not getting a response wouldn't be a reason for him to completely lose his crap because he would know it goes into a request box? If he's well-versed in cloud-based forensics enough to want to help a police department, seems like he would know that. Now, the only real connection that I can think of with everything that we have seen still leads me to this having nothing to do with Kaylee. I could be wrong, but it still leads me to that. We know that he was very vegan, to the point to where he made his parents get brand new cookware that had never touched meat before, and that Maddie and Xana both worked at a vegan restaurant. Now, I'm not vegan. I eat everything. But I'm pretty sure that if you're like a for real vegan, you have to be very specific about the restaurants that you eat at. And I don't know how that place is when it comes to these more modern things that are becoming so popular these days when it comes to the options available. Now, since it's a college town, you would think there'd be several of these because it's that generation that really is paying attention to the veganism, and this is just based off what I see on social media, so don't come at me for making generalized assumptions. There's a possibility there wasn't all that very many choices for him, and he ended up over at the vegan restaurant that Maddie and Xana worked at, and eventually became obsessed with one of them. I still personally believe that it was Maddie, because based on the PCA, it seems from what we are hearing from Dylan, I'm going to say again, just what they are telling us that Dylan said to them, because we don't even know if that story's true, you guys. We have no idea if that little first-hand account that she is giving them that has now been relayed to the public is even true. I'm just going to state that. But if it is, either he was upstairs first, did what he did to Maddie, then did what he did to Kaylee, and because Maddie was first, that's how Kaylee ended up on top of Maddie, and then went downstairs and dealt with Xana and Ethan, and that's whenever DM heard the crying, heard the whimpering, heard the unknown male's voice, after hearing things upstairs, then saw him apparently leaving the house. Or he went and did all the things he did to Xana and Ethan before even going upstairs, and somehow or another, Dylan never heard it and didn't hear anything until after he'd gone upstairs. And it's a great possibility that he could have gone and done whatever he did to Xana and Ethan first, because I've seen a lot of channels make a good point about the fact that he would have known from being around and physically seeing the house so much that there was a man there that night. And if you're expecting me to believe that he just got out of his vehicle from wherever they're not telling us it parked and went straight into that glass door and just proceeded without first walking around the house, getting a feel for if anyone's awake, trying to scope out if there's any movement. No, he knew. He had to have known that Ethan was in that house. So while yes, it would be smarter for the second floor to have been handled first so that he didn't get stuck or trapped whenever he came downstairs from the third floor. But then again, he is 6 feet tall. So if he absolutely had to, he could have just jumped off of the third floor balcony. But I'm still just so curious as to if that's how this went down. Maybe he did handle the second floor first, or thought he did, went upstairs, did what he did to Maddie and Kaylee, went to leave, and then heard the same whimpering and crying from Xana's room that Dylan did. I mentioned in the very beginning when I heard that Dylan heard an unknown male's voice say something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you," I instantly thought that that came from the killer. And I described exactly what I saw in my brain whenever I heard that statement. So it's very possible that he did do all those things, came back downstairs and heard the same thing, and went and said that to Xana as he took her life away because he failed to do it the first time. Ugh. Now, when it comes to the golf clubs, I know that the family mentioning it doesn't necessarily mean that it means anything, but it is still interesting to me that this brand new set of golf clubs is being told to us like its own entity and not being included in the personal belongings that are being held with the defense along with Ethan's 2 vehicles. So it could mean nothing, or it could mean that they think they were possibly used as a weapon somehow. At some point later on that day, it stated in the PCA that Bryan Kohberger was in another town and he went to an Albertsons, and while he was over there, he apparently went to some sort of medical facility. Now, because of HIPAA, we don't know what he had treated. If golf clubs were being used towards him as a defense, then you'd think that he would have injuries that would be pretty significant to the point where he would need some sort of medical care. But I don't know if those were injuries that he would be able to hide so easily. Now, assuming that there is some sort of de-involvement because of his past, pain can easily be numbed to where he could have walked around even with a broken bone and possibly it would have gone unnoticed. But to me, golf clubs cause serious injuries. So again, it's all just being assumed based off what we know, based off the verbiage that we're getting from things. Really nothing more at this point, and it's how it's going to be for a while. But then we also have to go back to the PCA details that state that the DoorDash for Xana got delivered at 4 a.m. and that her TikTok showed that she was truly active at 4:12. So like I mentioned in a previous video, does that mean that she would have been actively awake and on TikTok at 4:12 in the morning when whatever was going on upstairs and didn't hear anything, didn't know to prepare herself for someone being in the house? Or was TikTok opened on her phone on accident during a struggle and she really wasn't active at 4:12? The app just got opened. Because that's a possibility too. I have so many more questions and things that I want to talk about when it comes to the DoorDash order and the amount of time that it took him to get from his apartment to King Road that night compared to the drive that he took just a few hours later when his phone shows that it returned to the scene. But we're going to discuss that in the next video. I want to know what you guys think about this. Is it possible that under 10 minutes from what we're hearing from law enforcement and Jennifer Coffindaffer on Twitter, that he could have not only maybe went upstairs first, handled downstairs on the second floor, and then left. But is it plausible to think that in that amount of time, he could have gone and done something on the second floor to Xana and Ethan, then went upstairs, did what he did to Maddie and Kaylee, and then came back down to do something else on the second floor, and then leave in under 10 minutes? I just don't know, guys. I just don't know. But I want to know what you guys think. See y'all.